Since Oberon will be getting a rework in the future, this is going to be a build guide for how I'm currently playing him at level cap, rather than a full Oberon guide. So I'll be going over more so how I'm playing into his current strengths and around his weaknesses at the moment. To be completely transparent, he has a stance as a frame that really relies on his weapons at higher levels to do the majority of the heavy lifting, but I do think he offers a lot for those who want to play a support heavy role, and that's how I decided to approach building him. Looking at his kit, his passive doesn't offer much for level cap. It gives your companion 25% of your current shields, armor, and health, as well as a free revive. The only real benefit here is that you can use this to give sentinels like Taxon enough shields to activate Reinforced Bond, but that'll require Prime Redirection and Prime Vigor to achieve in this case. Too much investment to justify. Smite, I won't be using, so I'll be skipping over this for now. His first ability will be the Substream slot. Oberon's second ability is Hallowed Ground. On cast, you will create a patch of radioactive grass that grants status immunity while standing on it. I'm primarily using this ability for crowd control and energy economy. You can create 4 of these grassy zones to cover a wide area even at lower ranges. Hallowed Ground will tick for damage every half a second, with a chance to inflict radiation status. The status chance is pretty low without ridiculous amounts of strength, but these ticks are independent for each patch of grass. If you stack your grass in one spot, then your radiation stacks will build up at an okay pace despite the low status chance. Now Oberon's third ability, Renewal, is a start here if you want to play a support. This is a channeled ability providing an initial heal, and then a continuous heal for allies that enter the radius as well as yourself. For level cap, the healing related to this ability isn't going to be relevant. What will be is both the Bleed Out Slow and the Phoenix Renewal Augment. This Bleed Out Slow can extend your 20-second bleed out timer up to 200 seconds. This is achieved with 200% ability duration. I already have a more in-depth video about this, but the Bleed Out Slow allows us to take advantage of a lot of revive tech, or give yourself and allies more time to revive each other. Oberon's Renewal Augment is Phoenix Renewal. This mod will cause your allies that would take fatal damage to instead be healed and granted a few seconds of invulnerability. This is just free death prevention every 90 seconds for your team. Reckoning is Oberon's last ability, and in this build it will be primarily a janky armor strip. Enemies within range are picked up and then slammed into the ground, taking a radiation status proc and blinding nearby unaffected enemies. Enemies that are standing on your hallowed ground when you cast will be stripped of some of their armor. This ability will require 200% ability strength to strip on a single cast, or 164% strength with corrosive projection. There are a few other smaller components to this ability, but they aren't really important for this build. To end off this section, we have Omamori, Komori's ability that I've subsumed over Smite. When you cast this ability, you'll gain 10 to 20 charms that will float around your frame. When active, 50% of all hits will be negated. Negating an attack will instead heal you for the damage you would take, consuming a charm and applying a 3-second cooldown to additional charm usage. Regardless of the cooldown, you still have 50% chance to negate hits. When you add 5 or less charms, you can recast Omamori. So why Omamori? While Oberon doesn't have great abilities for active shield gating, Renewal is a channeled ability, Hallowed Ground requires you to be on the ground to complete the animation, and Reckoning is very expensive and slow to cast. Manually shield gating is already a very uncomfortable playstyle in my opinion, and using abilities that aren't suited for it makes it even more uncomfortable. So the easiest solution to this problem is passive shield gating through recharge, paired with Omamori to increase its effectiveness. For a quick look at Archon Shards, I'll be running 1 cast speed, 1 parkour velocity, 2 equilibrium, and 1 strength shard. These are completely optional, but if your energy economy is struggling, you may want to slot an equilibrium shard at least. So let's start taking a look at the build itself. I'll start with defenses. You'll see this combination a lot: catalyzing shields, fast deflection, and vigilante vigor. If you're shield gating to survive higher level content, but don't want to press an ability every 1.3 seconds, this is your solution. Catalyzing shields gives you a 1.3 second shield gate so long as you have any amount of shields. Fast deflection and vigilante vigor reduce your shield recharge delay to just 0.3 seconds. Once your shields start coming back online, even if just a few hit points, you'll have an adequate shield gate again. We then throw on Rolling Guard to cleanse off status effects or for unexpected situations where just a few moments of invulnerability will help. And finally, Phoenix Renewal to give us and teammates death prevention. This is a lot of mod space to give up for defenses, but this is just the price you pay for comfort at higher levels. For energy economy mods, we have just Prime Flow. Oberon has a large energy pool, so it's great value for giving you a large enough energy reserve to handle the drain of Renewal as well as recasting Hallowed Ground often. Because Renewal is a constant drain, we can't use options like Energy Nexus or Energy Siphon. For duration, I am just running Prime Continuity, but this could honestly flex into something else if you needed to. I just like my grabs lasting longer so I can cast it less often. Just keep in mind, this stat affects your bleed out timer and contributes to the energy drain of Renewal. For range, you have two options. Stretch if you want to be able to strip armor in a single cast with Reckoning once more augmented stacks are built up, or overextended and double casting Reckoning. I find 190 range a bit more comfortable, but giving up the strength and losing status chance on Hallowed Ground feels kinda bad, so I've opted to stick with just 145 range. No strength mods. Once more augmented kicks in, the red shard puts us over the threshold of a single cast armor strip with Reckoning. This also keeps the status chance of Hallowed Ground at a reasonable 26% chance. There is not much need for strength otherwise. The aura slot really comes down to how often do you actually want to armor strip with Reckoning. If you don't mind casting it anytime you need the strip, you can use Growing Power. 1 Tower Crimson Shard for strength, Molt Augmented and Growing Power will give exactly 200% strength on this build for a single cast strip. If you don't want to cast it all the time, just use Corrosive Projection to lessen everything's armor and force strip with Reckoning. And of course, Brief Respite is always an option. Finally, the Exo slot. I'm using Prime Shield Footed, but I'm someone who likes using Glaze and Epitaph, so I tend to stagger myself otherwise. Completely a skill issue on my part. Hallowed Ground does give you status immunity, but only while standing on it. If you're jumping over it, you'll knock yourself over still with AoE weapons. Otherwise, use the slot, or don't, completely up to you. You could slot Power Drift to save the red shard slot if needed. For Arcanes, I'm using Universal Fallout and Molt Augmented. Oberon's Grasp for spread radiation, making Fallout great for handling our energy economy by generating universal orbs. Each orb is 50 energy as well as 50 health. The 2 Violet Shards I'm using will bring that up to effectively 80 energy per pickup. Your teammates will also be able to pick these up as well, so that's even more support you provide. Molt Augmented for more strength, not much to be said here. The general gameplay loop is simply activate Omamori, activate Renewal, force your enemies to touch grass, and strip tanky enemies of their armor with Reckoning. We use a bunch of defensive layers so we are playing a game of odds. Will you die through casual shield gating, shield recharge, Omamori, radiation crowd control, secondary fortifier, or guardian on your companion within 90 seconds? If you do, Phoenix Renewal kicks in, so just try not to die a second time. And even if you do, there's the multiple revive options I've shown in my last Oberon video. But for the rest of the loadout, I normally use Burston and Incarnon in my primary slot. This is a pretty basic acuity build for taking out frags. Nothing special here, just a viral setup. If acuity is not your cup of tea, the standard stuff works here as well. My secondary slot goes to Epitaph Prime. Fire around the prime enemies and gain Overguard for an extra layer of protection. If you aren't using Brief Respite, make sure you have an Augur mod here or on a sentinel weapon. Just because we shouldn't have to shield gate often, doesn't mean we don't want the option to. And my melee choice is Falcor. I highly recommend picking up a Riven for it if you plan on using it often, but it's an amazing mob clear weapon regardless. Just melee influence and pure electric. It'll do great all the way up to level cap. For companions, I'd recommend a Sentinel, Doriga for priming, Taxon for additional shield getting, or Worm for extra status protection. They're all good options, but no matter what you use, make sure you slot Guardian. If you want to make use of the revive tech and you have the mod, slot in Sacrifice. Oberon's bleed out slow and make sure your companion can always revive you with Sacrifice. Just make sure you pair that with Regen to give it invulnerability for the revive animation. Lastly, Madurai is my focus core of choice for Cascade. Voice Strike and Contamination Wave were just too damn strong for taking out level cap frags for me to pass up. Caning Voice Stings for additional ability strength is great, and the additional cast speed for Reckoning from Transference feels nice, especially if you don't have a casting speed shards equipped. If you aren't playing Cascade, anything goes. But that's how I'm currently approaching Oberon. When his rework comes around, I'll definitely be taking another look at him to see what new tech we'll be able to take advantage of. But until then, this is all I have for you guys in this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and what your hopes for the Oberon rework are. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and as always, thanks for watching.